All right, welcome to this explainer. Imagine for a second that you're a general heading into a massive, high-stakes battle. You've got your troops, your weapons, and you are absolutely determined to win. But there's one really catastrophic problem here. You are completely blind. You have zero map of the terrain, you don't know your enemy's strengths, and honestly, you have no idea where the next attack is even coming from. Sounds like a total recipe for disaster, right? Well, crazy enough, for a really long time, that was exactly how business strategy worked.
Yeah, before 1980, the whole field of business strategy was basically just a messy collection of war stories and anecdotal advice. Business leaders were essentially these intuitive, reactive generals. They were just making guesses based on their gut instinct or, whatever the latest management fad happened to be. There was absolutely no unified scientific framework to explain why some companies consistently won while others just vanished. They were literally leading their troops without a map. But then, a young Harvard Business School professor named Michael E. Porter stepped onto the scene, and he completely revolutionized the entire battlefield by bringing rigorous, actual economic models right into the boardroom.
And that brings us to the core question that Porter's monumental work, Competitive Strategy, actually tries to answer. How exactly can a firm achieve a position of sustainable competitive advantage in its industry? I absolutely love this question because it just cuts right to the chase, right? The key word here is sustainable. In this explainer, we're going to unpack Porter's master blueprint. We're giving you the exact frameworks you need to not just survive out there in your industry, but to absolutely dominate it over the long haul.
So here's our map for the explainer today. We're going to start by looking at strategy before the map even existed, and then we'll map out the famous 5 forces. From there, we'll cover choosing your battle position, how to analyze your competitors, and finally, adapting to an evolving competitive landscape.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Strategy Before the Map, from Intuition to Science.
Let's really look at this shift from intuition to science, because, well, understanding how business used to be done shows us exactly why Porter's frameworks are such game changers today. The old intuitive strategist relied pretty much entirely on hunches. They were super reactive, always waiting around to see what the competition did before making their own move. But the analytical strategist, the modern leader who's actually armed with Porter's tools, they are completely different. They're systematic. They're looking at data to anticipate moves before they even happen. Think about it. Relying solely on your gut leaves your company totally vulnerable to these massive structural blind spots. But the analytical approach, it lets you see the whole board and actually command the entire battlefield.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mapping the 5 Forces, the Terrain of Profitability.
Now we start to see how all this builds into Porter's most famous concept. The 5 forces model is this systematic framework that is deeply rooted in microeconomics. See, Porter realized something huge. Your profitability isn't just about how good your specific product is. Not at all. It's actually heavily dictated by the underlying structural forces in your environment. I mean, you could have a truly phenomenal product, but if the underlying economics of your industry are just toxic, your margins are going to collapse anyway. So the goal of this model is to help you find a position in your industry where the competitive terrain does you the absolute most good, or, at the very least does you the least harm.
Just think about your own business for a second here. First off, is the threat of new entrants high because your barriers to entry are low? Are new guys threatening to just quickly compete away your profits? And what about your suppliers and your buyers? Do your suppliers have the concentrated power to just dictate terms and jack up your input costs? Or maybe it's the other way around, and concentrated buyers are successfully driving down your prices because, well, they hold all the leverage. Next up, are substitute products placing a hard ceiling on what you can actually charge? And finally, how intense is the rivalry among your existing competitors? Are you just constantly trapped in these exhausting, margin-destroying price wars? You have to remember, every single one of these 5 forces is actively draining your profitability.
All right, Section 3, Choosing Your Battle Position, the 3 generic strategies. So once you've actually mapped out the terrain, you've got to decide exactly how you're going to fight. You can't just wander onto the battlefield and hope for the best. You need a highly defined attack plan. And according to Porter, you really only have 3 viable paths to achieve competitive excellence. First, you can pursue cost leadership across a broad market. Think Walmart or Amazon here. They win by relentless cost minimization and operational efficiency to attract highly price-sensitive customers. Second, you can pursue differentiation across a broad market. Think Apple, creating something perceived as so incredibly unique and valuable that customers will happily pay a premium for it. Or third, focus. This is where you target a really narrow market segment. You can do this either through extreme low cost, kind of like Aldi, or through extreme unique differentiation, like Ducati motorcycles. The point is you absolutely must choose your source of advantage and your market scope.
Now, the really crucial point here is a pretty stark warning. Whatever you do not try to do it all. Porter explicitly warns against this deadly trap of being stuck in the middle. If you try to be the lowest cost provider while simultaneously trying to offer premium differentiation, you are going to possess absolutely zero competitive advantage. It's literally a mathematical impossibility. You'll either cut costs and accidentally destroy the premium features that make you unique, or you'll add unique features that immediately wipe out your cost advantage. Listen, you cannot be all things to all people. You've got to pick a side, commit your resources, and just execute.
Let's move to Section 4. Analyzing your competitors, knowing the enemy.
Now that you've chosen your position, you've got to understand exactly who you are fighting. Sun Tzu famously said that if you know the enemy and know yourself, you don't need to fear the result of 100 battles. And Porter actually provides a highly rigorous 4-step process for getting right inside your competitor's head. Step 1, analyze their future goals. Are they desperately chasing market share right now, or are they trying to maximize short-term profit? Step 2, identify their assumptions. What are their blind spots or outdated beliefs about the industry? Step 3, evaluate their current strategy. How are they actually behaving and positioning themselves today? And finally, Step 4, objectively assess their underlying capabilities. What are their actual strengths and their real limitations? By walking through this totally systematic process, you stop reacting to the enemy and you start anticipating them.
Now, it's also really vital to realize that not all competitors are created equal. Within literally any industry, there are clusters of firms following very similar strategies, and they are protected from one another by what Porter calls mobility barriers. We call these strategic groups. By mapping out these specific groups, you can pinpoint exactly who your most direct, dangerous threats actually are. And, even better, you can simultaneously spot highly lucrative, completely unoccupied positions in the broader market that your firm can just swoop in and aggressively exploit.
Bringing us to our final section, Section 5, the evolving competitive landscape, adapting to the war.
So here is the undeniable reality of the business battlefield. The map is never static. Industries are these living, breathing ecosystems that are constantly shifting around, and winning requires generals to constantly adapt. Let's just trace a typical industry life cycle really quick. In an emerging industry, your strategy should be entirely focused on building market share and establishing leadership. But as growth inevitably slows down and you transition to maturity, your strategy has to radically shift. You need to focus on intense consolidation, defending the share you've won, and ruthlessly reducing costs. Finally, in a declining industry, the smart play is to just harvest cash flow or divest entirely. One of the most classic, fatal strategic pitfalls out there is completely missing that crucial shift from emerging to mature and stubbornly running an aggressive growth strategy when you really should be cutting costs.
We have covered some absolutely incredible ground today. But if you take away just one single thing from this entire explainer, let it be this summarizing thesis from Michael Porter himself. He says, competitive strategy is about being different. That's the secret. True strategy is not about simply trying to be a little bit better at the exact same things your competitors are already doing. It's about deliberately choosing a totally different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value to your customers. That right there is the true essence of rigorous strategic thinking.
We've moved from the utter chaos of raw intuition all the way to the rigorous science of strategy. You've now seen the powerful mechanics of the 5 forces, the crystal clarity of the generic strategies, and the precise framework you need to anticipate your rivals long before they strike. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, vital question. What is your map? Take these frameworks, apply them relentlessly to your own industry, confidently choose your battle position, and secure your long-term competitive advantage. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.